Hey, how's it going, YouTube? Crazy weekend for the last qualifier of NA RLCS for the season. That's right, the last qualifier. We already through the whole season. All that's left is the major in London and the World Championship for North America, which means all but 4 teams are done for the season. A lot to talk about in today's breakdown, but before we get into those things, a couple things. Number one, if you like the content, subscribe, turn on notifications, hit the like button, comments down below, always appreciated. On top of that, we have 16 teams here competing, and going in, roughly all but like 3 or 4 had a chance to go and make the major, given some circumstances. Likely we were going to see G2, Space Station, and Gen G make it, and then that 4th spot was up for grabs. Potentials for like 5-way tiebreakers and a bunch of chaos. But what ended up happening, I don't think anyone expected, which made for an incredible downtime. Looking at the results, we can see across the board, the first 2 to qualify were G2 and Shopify. You guys on this channel have been watching me talk about Shopify's offense. I've been really enjoying it. I like the groove they're getting into, and we saw consistency. Shopify showing that they can go and beat the top dogs, taking down both Gen G and Space Station, looking damn good doing it. Gen G, on the other hand, had some ebbs and flows and some complications, didn't look as polished, still finding a way to do it 3-1. Same with Space Station. And then OG 3-1 over Luminosity. Luminosity went through a gauntlet, beating NRG, M80, and Cloud9. Ironically enough, Dignitas also beating Cloud9, NRG, and M80. So both those teams, exact same teams they win, exact same teams they lose to, which I thought was kind of a crazy trend. Also, all the teams that won their first round also are the ones that qualified. All the teams that lost their first round, ones that ended up going home. Pretty wild trends and patterns that we're seeing here. But I will say, in my humble opinion, out of all the teams outside of M80, I think we got the best performing teams in the top 8. We talk about parity and chaos and all the ups and downs, the highs and the lows. M80 is the only team that, you know, normally is in that top 8 position. And then you see the influx of like Dignitas or Shopify or Moist or whoever. Maybe if M80 makes that top 8, then I go, okay, you know what? We have our top 8 most consistents in our top 8 for the final event of the year. M80 though, a lot of pressure, and I can summarize this whole weekend as pressure. Like, the amount of pressure to not only qualify, make top 8, give yourself a chance to go to the major, and then on top of that, if you go and you perform well, you go to London, you perform well, chance to go to the World Championship. Like, there was so much on the line this weekend, and it was tough, dude. It was really tough. You could see a lot of sloppy play, a lot, like, people just didn't want to hold on possession because one goal conceded was make or break for the season, and that got to some people. So a lot of nerves, a lot of pressure. Unfortunately, M80 falls to it and succumbs to it, and they end up falling apart. Cloud9 not able to recreate the success they had the previous weekend. Again, it happens. Moist obviously came out. It looks like they found their form, and pretty impressive across the board. We jump into our top 8, and we're going to make these quick for you. This is where it gets pretty crazy. So in the top 8, G2 Dig, Space Station OG, Shopify Luminosity, Gen G, and Moist. Going in to that weekend, or to that Saturday, we had the following tiebreakers. Okay. G2 had already clinched. Gen G and Space Station needed Shopify to just not win the entire thing, or they needed OG to lose in the quarterfinal, which was crazy because Space Station OG, most people favored Space Station. For OG, they needed Shopify to lose in the quarterfinal, and they needed LG to not make the grand final, so they were pretty sure on that one. And then Moist and Dig weren't going to win. So out of their tiebreakers, to clinch, to not leave it up to tiebreakers, OG just needed Shopify to lose. That's it. They just needed Shopify to lose. That's all they really needed, and they needed LG to lose or not make the grand final. So one or the other. They probably wanted LG to win. That gives the hardest one, and then they needed LG to lose to like a Gen G in the or the semifinals or something. As for Shopify, they had to get to the grand finals, and then they needed OG to lose, and they needed LG to not win. For Luminosity and Moist, they had to win the whole thing, the whole shebang, and then needed help. And then for Dignitas, they had to win the whole thing and help as well. So there's some pretty crazy results going in, and ironically enough, there was a chance for us to have a 5-way tiebreaker and a bunch of different things. What ended up happening was chaos. The first one, if you guys can't see, Moist took down Gen G. Moist beat Gen G 4-1 convincingly. Gen G has not had the same feel, the same intensity that they came out with in Qualifier 4, where they won the whole thing. And let's call it what it is. If they don't win that qualifier, they don't make it. We talk about consistency, peaks, and summits. M80 is the epitome of a plateau. They came in top 8. That is not good enough to make it to the main event. You have to have peaks. It is better to play okay with some dips as long as you dominate at least one time. And that's what it was for Gen G. Gen G got a first place and two 8th places. That's enough for them to go to the major through tiebreakers, through some help. So that stuff is important. If you don't consistently get at least a top 4 or a top 2 once in a while, you're not going to the major, especially with only 4 spots being available. It's why I really want last chance qualifiers. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out yesterday's video. I talk about my ideal format if we didn't have limitations. It's a good watch. We then had Shopify and Luminosity. Many of us, at least in my opinion, believed Shopify based upon the offense and the way they were looking. They looked very polished, and they did just that. Really good offense. Justin looking incredible. Tough loss, though, in the next one between OG and Space Station. I think Coxer is doing an incredible job of controlling space and understanding when to buy time for his teams. Com really stepped up, demo heavy, in the face, creating opportunities. But everything that you know about OG, absorb pressure, counterattacks, and then just consistent play while creating some opportunities on the other half with demos on rotation. And then G2 made quick work of Dignitas. G2 was pre-jumping. They had mid-air pass plays. I posted one on Twitter, which was just absolutely stupid. Where beast mode came in off the ceiling and like dunked a dude. Like, look at this. So one's off, beast mode's gonna be flying over here, and then he decides to jump down and get a block and dunk it. It's like the play after that was like a pre-jump pass in the corner where they passed it back and forth to each other before they shot it. Like it was just stupid. Like the way G2 was playing this weekend was stupid. Zero complacency from the guys, feeling as confident as ever. In Atomic's interview, they also talked about how, like, hey, do you guys just do these because you're feeling confident, or is it something you practice? He's like, we've hit better ones in scrims, but like, yeah, it's stuff we go for. So yeah, feeling very good. I will say, in contrast to that, a lot of teams, because of the pressure and everything being on the line, very much so giving a lot of space, very passive in the play because there is so much on the line and they're nervous. They don't want to make a mistake. But ironically, that creates the mistake, giving those teams space. You still got to play your play style. Easier said than done with pressure. I then said Shopify and Moist. Shopify looked like the favorite, and they showed just that. Pretty convincing. They dropped the first 2 because Moist came out swinging, and then they settled in and a lot of goals. A lot of goals. And then we got some hopium. We're like, Justin may make London again. For the 3rd time, we could see Justin back on LAN. That'd be amazing. It would be absolutely incredible. It'd be sick. The difficulty is they're going up against G2 in the finals because G2 and OG, G2 is just too much. OG had some fight in them, and they try to create some opportunities and a little bit of disruption, but G2's offense is just overwhelming, and their defense is the best in the world. Like, statistically, they're incredible. So we got G2 and Shopify, and at this point, because of this happening, this now means that Space Station and Gen G, based upon their result, needed Shopify to lose. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, so if Shopify loses here, Gen G and G2 then, or Gen G and Space Station make the event. So they lose, that ends up happening. G2 looks the best. They're putting up goals like nobody's business. G2 just looked G2 looked unstoppable. They have the worst performance is 2nd place the entire season. It's another win for them outside of the loss that they took to Gen G in Qualifier 4. Otherwise, they are vibing. Like, G2 looks so good. Sathu's got to be very happy with the team. But because of all that then created a tiebreaker between the 2 teams. You had 2 teams in Shopify and OG that were tied perfectly at the same amount of points for that 4th and final spot, which, if you guys aren't familiar on how tiebreakers work for the RLCS, you have 2 teams that are essentially playing not just for the major in a single best of 7, but for their entire season. Going into this, and based upon the stats and the numbers, Shopify, if they placed top 8 at the major, so if they win a single best of 7, they go to the major, and then they have a chance, if they place top 8, to then qualify for Worlds and knock out both OG and LG from the contention, which would have been crazy. So we already knew 3 teams going to the World Championship. This match, this single best of 7, determined if you got to go to London and essentially if you had a chance to go to Worlds. So much on the line, and we got everything we could ever wanted. It was a best of 7 down to the wire. Both teams came out swinging. Very close 1-goal game, as both teams, obviously, a lot of pressure, a lot of nerves, both recently coming off of losses earlier in the day. Shopify, I think, had a little bit better of an advantage because even though they lost to G2, which they expected probably to lose, they had a professional warm-up. OG had been sitting cold for a little bit. So close game, good for OG. OG then recognizes, hey, we got to play aggressive. We got to be assertive. We can't give these guys space. We got to do what we do, which is demo galore. And they get 2 back-to-back. 5-1, 3-1. Call a timeout. Shopify's timeout. Adjustments with memory. The boys bounces back 4-2, 5-2. We then go 3-2 in an OT. 7 seconds. It's a kickoff goal they concede, which hurts. And then in the last game, game 7, London on the line, Major on the line, World Championship, season ending on the line. It goes to a 4.5-minute OT, and a lot of people harping. This is a team thing. When you watch the play, a lot of people are blaming Justin taking it on himself. There was a play at the beginning where it was basically 3 or 4 mistakes all at the same time. Parth missed a touch. He gave possession to JNAPS, which allowed him to clear it freely. Midfield, Justin off the sidewall. Instead of going up the sidewall, he tried to jump and trap it on the sidewall and then play it back in. So the midfield clear wasn't denied. And then on the back end, you had a player who didn't go for the immediate challenge. They tried to play off backboard and then jump up. That goes in. So it's like multiple things came into play. Nobody in one particular. It's a multitude of things. But OG with a counterattack in OG-like fashion off the backboard gets a goal. So OG, despite all the odds, despite the slow start, comes together. And the veteran leftovers bring it together and prove, like, you know what? We still got it. So crazy stuff. Your 4 teams going to London and the World Championship all locked in. You've got G2, Gen G, Space Station, and OG, the ones we called, the one we assumed was going to be based upon the results. Consistency, ironically enough, despite all the chaos. And what does that mean for everybody else? Get a long off season. 3 weeks from now, we've got the London Major. It's what, June like 20th or something like that. And then 3 months after that, September like 12th or something, is the World Championship. It's a 3-month gap between Major 2 and everybody else. But for all those other teams, you're done for the season. It's chalked up. Put a tweet about it. Do you consider retiring? Do you transition into coaching, managing, something like that? Do you look for a new roster? Do you, like, you just don't know. We have a long off season and no announcements on any third-party events. So what do you do? It's a pretty tough conversation. And hopefully improvements for the future. I can tell you selfishly, I am working on trying to provide events and trying to provide things for these players to do and whatnot. But yeah, it is a crazy reality that we are not in June yet, but you still have 6 months of the year left with nothing. So I'm expecting none of these rosters to stay because 7 months of Rocket League, a lot changes, as we've already seen during this downtime. So crazy stuff. Let me know what you guys want to hear, what you guys want to see as well during that offseason. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts, opinions on the tiebreaker. I thought it was incredible to watch. But that does it for today's video. A little bit longer one. A lot to cover, but we'll be back tomorrow. We've got an EU recap talking about how all the top dogs dropping down to the lower bracket. Crazy. And more. But I'm out of here. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.